Okay, so guys, let's not wait much. I think it's already uh past one. It's 10 minutes past one. Okay, so I welcome you guys to this wonderful webinar and the class on importance of nutrition and diet in preventive cardiology and heart health. So as you know that we are running this course now, master certificate course in preventive cardiology. And as I have already discussed in our orientation program, preventive cardiology means that we talk about, all the other aspects than pharmacology or pharmacological treatments, right? We don't talk about the procedures or medicines here much. We just talk about how to control and prevent the cardiac problems, how to control and prevent heart attacks or heart failures or arrhythmias, right? And there are multiple aspects, there are multiple ways, like to, first of all, it starts with, tackling the underlying causes, like how to, prevent the diabetes, how to prevent the hyperlipidemia, how to prevent the, hypertension, multiple things, right? And then the main part comes to diet lifestyle modifications, right? Diet and lifestyle modifications. So in this master's course, we will be talking about all. I think you all have you've seen our brochure, right? I hope you all have seen our brochure. Let me just share for 30 seconds, and then you can see how we have planned this master's course, and you will have one important glance on it, because today we have some more announcements for all of you guys. Let me just share this. So along with that, let me tell you first, in that, diet and nutrition is one of the important part. And in this important part, there will be many things to discuss. There will be many things to discuss. And today we have, arranged this webinar, or we can call it demo class, also to showcase that how we are going to complete it, how we are going to achieve the things, in the preventive cardiology, right? So I hope here, yeah. Wait, so that's here, right? So here we have the entire course curriculum. First, we talking about, all the introduction part, then how to assess the cardiovascular risk, how to, manage the lipids, and how we can prevent the cardiovascular problems by managing the lipids, by managing the hypertension, by managing the diabetes, and how we can, go for the smoking cessation things, and what are the strategies, and how it actually impact the cardiovascular diseases, then the physical activities and cardiovascular health, then nutrition and cardiovascular disease prevention. And today we are talking about that part only. Heart healthy diets, that there are multiple types of diets, and then we have nutritional guidelines, we have role of fats, fiber, salt in the heart health, and a lot more, right? And then we have psychological factors in cardiovascular health, pharmacotherapy for preventive cardiology, and then heart failure preventions, early diagnosis, early prevention. I mean, there is a lot to discuss in the entire course. And today is very specific day where we are talking about nothing else but diet and nutrition for the heart health, right? Diet and nutrition for the heart health. And before we go further, before we start this, guys, let me tell you how you will get the certificate. So you all have to be here. I think something wrong has done. Can you please stop Asraf? Can you please stop Obed Asraf? You guys want me to? Okay. Yes. Better. It's better if you don't play with the, things here. Otherwise, I have to restrict your voice and everything, guys. Okay. You can just be able to, type in the text box. I don't want that. So please contribute in the smooth running of this class, right? Yeah, so I was telling one more important announcement, that only for today, many people are requesting, because we have closed the registrations for our master's course in preventive cardiology. And, we have very good, overwhelming response in the preventive cardiology course. A lot of people have joined, a lot of interested people from different domains like medical domain and other healthcare domains, nursing, pharmacy, nutrition. I mean, many people have joined this course. But again, after a lot of requests, I have come up with this, only 1 day offer for all of you. My team has decided that only for the attendees who are attending today this masterclass or this webinar and this demo class, they will have a chance to register today with the discounted prices. Okay, right now the price, I think the original price for this is more than 500 rupees, but today you all, whoever is interested to register for this course, they will be able to register in 499 rupees only. But at the end of this class, we will share the link and then only you will be able to register. Okay, so this is an offer for all who just want to register for this course. Okay, it is up to like, because many people have requested me, so I thought like, okay, let me give one more chance to all of you. So with that, let's not take much more time in that, and let me talk about our today's guest speaker, today's expert. And we have Miss Saranya Sastry. So she's a preventive clinical nutritionist with a special interest in sports nutrition. She's working right now in New Delhi, and she's a published author for many newspapers like Deccan Herald, Bangalore Mirror, New Indian Express, and magazines like Femina and India Today, offline and online versions. And she has also conducted corporate webinars with companies like Titan and Fintelix and John's Controls, Avaya, Evident, many more, many more. She's a very known face in dietetics and nutrition, and right now she's working as a sports nutrition. She holds her double masters in sports science from ISST Pune and in dietetics and applied nutrition from renowned Manipal Academy of Higher Education. And she's also certified in bariatric nutrition and diabetic education. Her areas of interest includes recovery from the sports injuries and importance of nutrition among athletes, especially women athletes, right? So she has multiple hands-on experiences as a nutritional intern at St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, and a student at Kasturba Hospital, Manipal. So I mean, a lot to read, about her. And as I told, she's a very renowned face in the field of dietetics. So I welcome Ms. Saranya Sastry to deliver the lecture. Over to you, Saranya ji.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. It's always nice to be here, and I'll quickly share my screen and let me know if it's visible.
Yeah, sure.
Is it visible?
Yes, it is. I think now the PPTs are,
Yeah.
PPT is getting open here.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are, Saranya.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think this is very important. Like, I think the course has been designed so well, which covers.
Saranya, you can just unmute yourself. I'm so sorry. I think by mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope I'm audible now. So I was saying that the course is so well designed that it is so nicely designed with a holistic approach, and I think nutrition today plays a very important role, and people are much more aware of nutrition, not only with respect to cardiology, or today we are talking with respect to heart health here, but even otherwise. I think today the awareness that we have with respect to nutrition is much more higher than what it was probably a few decades ago, at least in an Indian scenario. So starting off with preventive health, because here we are trying to get better and not reach that stage where, we have to suffer with an heart attack or any cardiovascular disease. So like it's always said, prevention is better than cure. And All of us want to be healthy. Recently on November 14th, it was World Diabetes Day. Not sure how many of you knew about this. So there were so many articles on how to control blood sugars and how, bad blood sugars can lead to heart problems in the future. So everywhere, there were people putting up an awareness post or an awareness talk about all these things. And also in September, there is, I think on September 29th, it is the World Heart Day. And the theme of this year was to create awareness about how important it is to take care of your heart, because cardiovascular diseases, which is a broad term which we use in the medical fraternity, is one of the first major reasons that leads to a lot of deaths in the country, followed by other things like, your diabetes or any other chronic disorder. So, can you see the next slide?
No, we are still on the first slide.
Okay, yeah.
Now, yeah, now, yes.
Yes. So food heart connection. So many times, do we even really know that there is a food heart connection? I mean, every time we use heart in a very, the term heart or heart health is used in a very broad way, like, oh my, somebody broke my heart, oh my heart is so happy. But do you know that there is actually a food heart connection which the research has proved? So I have taken these exclusive quotes from a research paper which I have mentioned, where it says that nutrition is the most important behavioral factor in preventing any form of a CVD death and disability, surpassing smoking abstinence, and physical activity. So this is taken from the paper that I have mentioned here. So most of the times, off late at least, it is coming into picture where people we know are into emotional eating, binge eating, stress eating, and they don't eat healthy food, right? Most of us only eat ice creams, chocolates, and sometimes we end up having a coffee, like if it's a bad day today, something's not going right in our personal life, you just end up eating. So this is again, this is again a kind of eating which is again due to stress or other forms of, trigger. But this is again connected to your food or the way of eating, or that decides your nutritional quality of what you're eating. So nutrition by far is the most important behavioral. That is why it says it's a behavioral factor, right? It's not one of the other factors like a social factor or anything. It's a behavioral factor. And the second statistics say that it is estimated that the adoption of healthy lifestyle choices reduces the risk of myocardial infarction by 81 to 94%, whereas treatment with these therapies alone result in 20 to 30% reduction. So this is where lifestyle becomes a very, very important factor. And I always tell in every talk of mine that, like how Rome was not built overnight, things cannot change overnight whenever it comes to any form of a, nutrition or food related thing. You at least need to do it for a month or two, or maybe in certain cases, whenever we are trying to look at a long term prevention when it comes to preventing of diabetes, heart health, to be specific here, it has to be started at a very younger age, and it has to be done very consistently. A lot of them have this problem where uh, people think that if they do it for 3 weeks it's enough, and most of the times people come to me when I consult and they ask me for how many days should they follow it. So, well, it's not about for how many days. Certain things have to be a part of our lifestyle, and only then you will be able to see a change. So you will not be able to see a change if you do it for 1 day or 2 days and then, nothing will happen. So lifestyle modification or making a part of this, nutrition or eating healthy as a part of your regular routine, you don't have to make it very fancy, sophisticated, make it very difficult on, for yourself, because I think we already have many things in our life where we are dealing with our career, job, personal life and things. But making this a conscious choice in your lifestyle is very important. So there is definitely a food heart connection, even the research has proved it. So yes, yes, there is a connection like how we established in the previous slide. So the factors which account for most of the problems here, of course, hypertension, smoking is not really going to be my area of concern today, but obesity and physical inactivity. So I would like to discuss this more in detail, because I think the other things you will cover it in your other parts of the program. So obesity today is a leading problem. So obesity earlier was due to people, we would only see that in adults, right? It is that's that people would get sedentary after a particular age, and then people started putting on weight. But today's problem is pediatric obesity. So pediatric obesity is the biggest problem today in India, because I don't know, recently if you saw a post which was going very viral on Instagram and other social media, where it said this time Zomato and Swiggy made the highest profit with so many billions. Not sure of the exact number. So I don't know how many of you even came across that, right? So what did I understand from that Zomato and Swiggy is that today food is so easily accessible, whether it's junk or healthy food, right? Everything is so accessible and affordable. Number two, so we don't really want to cook and stand in the kitchen for probably 10-15 minutes, because I know that probably if I do a Zepto or a Blinkit or a Swiggy or Instamart, I will get anything and everything in the next 7 minutes, as 6 minutes as promised, or probably 15 minutes. So with this, lot of packaged foods, lot of processed foods are coming in. I remember when I was studying, when I was in school or college, if I had to eat something, I would only be given that probably once a week or probably once a month, if because we had to then only go to a hotel or a restaurant, and then that would be only possible only because if all the if all of us are free, and if my dad decides to say yes that day. It was not so accessible like how today I can just do a Swiggy, Instamart, or probably do some Zomato. So today the problem in the current kids, that is why there is a rise in pediatric obesity. Coming back to that, is because of course parents are busy, we are all working people, we sometimes do not have time because we are so busy in our own schedule, that we might as well, we end up ordering twice a week, thrice a week, or we probably get ready made, ready to eat foods in the kitchen, right? So with this rise in pediatric obesity, a child of today is a citizen of tomorrow. So this child who grows up to be again a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old man or a woman will definitely be vulnerable to all sorts of problems. And that is why we see today children are not anymore cute, right? They're so obese, so we have so many problems, like apart from pediatric obesity, I'm sure you agree that they are also facing issues with hormonal imbalances. There are so many things like diabetes in a 15-year or a 13-year-old. So all of this is a lifestyle change. So the more accessibility and affordability we have with technology, with AI and coming into picture, and even today people are using AI in everything, like from calorie counting to driving a car and all of that. uh, I think the more problems are creeping in into our own lifestyle, because we are becoming very less active. Of course, thanks to technology, it has made our work so easy. You don't have to go grocery shopping every now and then. You have Zepto, Blinkit coming to your doorstep. But also with that Zepto, Blinkit, we are also kind of over abusing that by ordering so many packeted stuff, right? So today, that is why android obesity is more common than the gynoid obesity. So android obesity, by here I mean, an apple-shaped body. So where you have a lot of fat accumulation or deposition in the visceral area or in your abdominal area. So that is why Indians are known as thin fat Indians. So Indian structure, Asian population, we are not very well built like a European or an American, but we all have the tendency to accumulate a lot of visceral fat or the fat in our abdominal area, especially in the stomach, right near the stomach region or the belly region, when compared to a European or an American, right? So that is why we are called thin fat Indians. So that is known as the android obesity. And gynoid obesity is where your body looks like a pear shape. So this is mostly seen in women, right? Women who are little physically not active. So where you have a lot of fat deposition happening around the hips and the buttock area. But most of the men and also the children, when they put on weight today, is mostly android, right? It's mostly an apple shape where you have a lot of deposition of fat in your belly area. So what technology and all of food and all of that, we also have access to good food, but with this so many other factors that I mentioned, so this is also a problem which we are facing in 2024 and maybe even in the future. So what are we going to discuss today in detail is about all these things. I would not like to take a lot of time on that. Nutrition management. So coming to the whole thing, this slide looks very complex and very confusing, and it looks too filled with jargons, but it's all very, very simple. We just have to eat normally whatever we are traditionally and growing up eating, and locally whatever we find. You don't have to go and look for a specific vitamin C, folic acid, niacin, vitamin B6. No, it is just a relationship to show how nutrition and atherosclerosis here in slide. But in general, I would like to say any heart issue is connected, because in general, most of the heart problems start again with this plaque formation or higher lipid levels. That's how it generally starts, right? Until and unless there are few cases where somebody has a direct heart attack, but generally in a sedentary person, it doesn't really suddenly go to a massive heart attack. It at least starts with some bare minimum symptoms, when ignored can progress. So here we initially see that the person is overweight or obese. He's not maintaining his ideal body weight. There is inflammation in the body. Inflammation, by which I mean to say that, at the cellular level or the tissue level, and then that gives a rise in your cholesterol or lipid levels. So all these things are connected to what you eat. It is mostly 70 to 80% of what you eat, and of course followed by your stress, your activity levels, your sleep quality, all of that. So this slide is just trying to emphasize and tell you what are all the possible things, why nutrition or how nutrition plays a very important role in taking care of your heart health specifically. So these things which I have mentioned here might look very complex, but these are all the so many vitamins and minerals and nutrients that comes from our normal food. You don't have to do anything extra to this. So heart healthy diets. So it's like, long story cut short. So what do we have to do to keep our heart healthy and to prevent any form of ailment or damage to the heart? So there are two diets which are exclusively recommended by the WHO and the NIH, which I have mentioned here, which is known as, one, the DASH diet, and second one is the Mediterranean diet, for a specific case in terms of preventing any form of heart ailments. So, a DASH diet is nothing but a dietary approach to stop hypertension. That is the full form of DASH, and it is not necessary only for hypertension. It is necessary. It holds good for any of the heart. Basically, it's for a healthy heart, right? If anybody who's overweight, or if you have a family history of hypertension, or if you yourself you're doing such a job where you're constantly stressed, all of this, where you feel that you can be more vulnerable to developing these symptoms or problems in the future, we can adopt to these diets. So again, I would like to make it very clear that these are not some fancy diets. Okay, these are all scientifically tested and time proven diets. And again, it is not something like a keto or something like your intermittent fasting, which can be done only for a few days. So these are nothing but lifestyle modifications. So if you see on the right hand side, you just see what are the things that you can eat and what are the things that you have to limit. Okay, so here, like, we see that things like vegetables, fruits, whole grains, poultry, beans are all under the green box, right? Or it is under the allowed set of foods. And what are we asked to limit is your sodium intake, your sugar and processed food, your full fat dairy, and especially your red meat. So when it comes to the DASH diet, we just have to understand one thing, that we have to limit the intake of processed foods. So by which I was talking about all our very nice lace and kurkure and all of these frozen canned products that we are usually consuming in the kitchen. And it actually just asks you to include a sufficient amount of, here I'm trying to specify on the word emphasize on the word sufficient amount of vegetables, fruits and whole grains, along with our whatever cereal we have, nuts and seeds. So the word that sufficient is very important. Why I was being very specific on that is, people eat fruit once a day or probably maybe once a week, and then they think they've eaten fruit, right? And somebody eats a vegetable in one meal, and then they say, okay, this today I have had vegetable. So this is where we go wrong, right? So a meal has to be balanced. It's not only about lunch, it's not only about dinner. every meal that we eat has to be balanced. So that is why inculcating dash diet, or this kind of a lifestyle modification is very important. So I think most of us these days have already resorted to low fat dairy products until and unless somebody is using a full fat dairy product, and having healthier forms. So the method of cooking also is very important. I'll come to that in the upcoming slide. So here, when you're following a dash diet, so it is important that we also look at other things like your sodium, we are lowering the sodium. So sodium is not against salt. Most of the times when I say sodium, people understand that I'm only talking about the salt consumption. There are different sources of sodium which comes through in the diet. Okay, so sodium can also be found in your biscuits. So most of them ask me, they tell me that, ma'am, I don't eat salt in meals, we hardly eat any salt, but then as soon as I get up in the morning, I have one cup of coffee with 2 to 3 rusk or biscuits. So sodium is also coming from your biscuits. Sodium also comes from your processed foods. Processed foods means, your pizza, your burgers, your pasta, all of them. Sodium also comes from continuous eating of raw green leafy vegetables, because most of the times people think that they are on a very good diet and they're eating a lot of raw green leafy vegetables. And then there are other things which we don't even focus on, like calcium, magnesium, potassium, because we don't eat any of these nuts, we don't eat seeds, we don't inculcate. Maybe we eat it once a week or twice a week, and most of the other times we forget. So dash diet does not only mean you eat only vegetables, only fruits, it all has to be balanced. So in this kind of an eating plan, okay, am I okay, let me go up. So here, as we see that they're not only restricting anything from the diet, right? Here, most of the times people think that diet means we are not eating something. We are asked not to eat something. That is the general mindset that people, at least I have seen, have. So diet means it's like a punishment. So no, it is just a very simple way of inculcating everything, whether it's a fruit, whether it's a local seasonal vegetable, whether it's a whole grain. So here I mean whole grain means anything, which it can be like your bajra, it can be gehu, it can be that is wheat, or it can be your rice, it can be millet. Basically including everything in a very balanced way. What balance am I talking about, we'll get to know in the upcoming slides. Okay, and also restricting our processed food intakes, that is your beverages. Like of late, I think I have also heard my patients tell me that we drink diet coke. We don't drink the normal coke, but we drink diet coke. So it is one and the same. So it is not just that, yeah, maybe diet coke, you're talking about the sugar content being a little lesser than the normal coke, but diet coke is coke. Like, coke is coke, right? Whether you drink a diet coke or a non diet coke, right? So these are the things that we need to make sure that we are not having in our, having it maybe once a while is okay, but sometimes people stock up diet cokes in the fridge thinking that, instead of whenever I feel like drinking something, I would like to drink that. So these are the things that give you the extra amount of sodium, the unnecessary calories. You eat one serving extra of a roti or a rice will not actually harm you, but you include diet coke, you include some pasta, and then all these frozen and canned foods so regularly in your diet on a day to day basis, that is going to give you the problem. So coming to the next part, which is the Mediterranean diet, which is the next suggested diet in by any website or a practicing nutritionist or a dietitian when it comes to heart health. So what does research say about Mediterranean diet? So most of the times these diets like dash diet, Mediterranean diet, these are all specific to a particular, like thing, like a particular system, like in order to take care of your heart. These are the recommendations done, but people have misused it in these past few days under the blanket of weight loss, right? So I see a lot of people following a very low salt diet, though they are not hypertensive, or though they are already in their ideal body weight, and just in the name of losing weight. Similarly, I've also seen a lot of women fall prey to this Mediterranean diet, especially when they want to lose weight. I mean, or sometimes they're already in their ideal body weight, but they have like a function coming up or a wedding coming up. So that is not the right way to follow these things, number one, because these things have to be inculcated after talking to a specific nutritionist, like, or a dietitian, and then depending upon your body needs, right? Not everybody has the same requirement. You and I can have different requirements physiologically and physically. Your activity levels, my activity levels, the gender, age, all of this comes into picture, right? So just because somebody is doing something, we cannot follow that blindly. But there are researches which have exclusively mentioned when and by whom can these modifications or changes be followed exactly. So here, one of the research says that this was conducted in UK, which says that women, here it was done among 25,000 female healthcare providers who were overweight, okay, mind you, not somebody who was in their ideal body weight or who didn't have a problem, who were overweight and they followed this Mediterranean diet, had a 30% reduced risk for developing diabetes 20 years later. So it means that like we all know this term called metabolic syndrome, right? So everything is interconnected. So it's not that heart is not connected to your blood sugars is not connected to your body weight, everything, your whole body is like a system. We all know that it's all interconnected. They don't work, though work independently, but they're all interdependent as well. So things in which are mostly comprising of a metabolic syndrome are your heart and your blood sugars and your entire endocrine system, basically. So here we have realized that Mediterranean diet has worked well on women who were, among 25,000 healthcare providers when they followed this Mediterranean diet. Okay. And then also there is another research which again tells us that Mediterranean diet could lower blood pressure by a few points. This was again conducted in New York, right? So the details here, they have mentioned by how many of, mercury also was it lowered. So this shows that when it is followed under the right guidance in the right way by the right set of population, it has, benefited people. Not like anybody and everybody, just because today you saw something and read up something on YouTube or came across something on YouTube or probably any other social media. We cannot just inculcate anything randomly, right? That's very important. So now what does Mediterranean diet say? So Mediterranean diet is very, very specific of what to be taken and how many times it has to be taken, right? So here we see that again on the right hand side, you can see this is for all of you if you want to save it or just kind of remember it. Here it says that every 3 servings a week, what are all the important things that we need to have, whether it's fruits, vegetables, grains, extra virgin olive oil. I am not mentioned, I will come to the oil category separately, but these are the things that all of us should have. Followed by what are we limiting to 1 serving a day, right? So fish or nuts or legumes, these are all enough to 1 serving a day. So many times people ask me, right, when they're on weird diets to lose weight, they want to know, can I have non-veg the whole day? Can I have servings of nuts the whole day? All of these things. So Mediterranean diet gives you a very specific recommendation of how many times in a week and even how many servings in a day. Similarly, when you see the last category of your poultry and your red meat and sweets, it is so clearly written that it is only 1 serving per week. So this is for a person who is sedentary, who is also looking at maintaining his or her weight, and who also probably is a little susceptible or vulnerable to developing a cardiac or a heart problem in the future. So it is very, very important that we come across or we stick to these guidelines if we are following these things. So eat at every meal, fruits, your whole grains, your vegetables is every meal. 3 servings a week is probably your fish and nuts and legumes. So limit to 1 serving a day is all your low fat dairy and eggs. But unfortunately, people have so many different ideas of diets these days, where I have seen young boys, in the name of bodybuilding, they're eating eggs all day, like, morning eggs, afternoon eggs. So all of these things have to be tailor made. Nothing is wrong or right. It totally depends on your body recommendation, your body requirement, right? If you're a 40-year-old and if you start following that diet, it will definitely give you a lot of problems. So why is Mediterranean diet considered heart healthy, and which is supposed to be, or which can be followed by anybody who's looking at maintaining their weight, who's also very probably sedentary in nature, and at the same time who wants to have a good heart health, is because it always takes care of your heart. It lowers the risk of your cardiovascular disease. And for anybody who's having cholesterol issues, who's having blood pressure issues, all of you people can also start following Mediterranean diet, again by talking to by getting a customized plan for yourself. And also certain, because Mediterranean diet is also very rich in these consumption of vegetables and fruits, which indirectly makes it an antioxidant diet, because there are so many antioxidants present in your vegetables and fruits, and all of this is eaten in a balance. So that is why it also lowers the risk of certain types of cancer, which is again being proved. And it also declines your it slows down the decline of your brain function, because most of them of late have started seeing after 60, people tend to have a little bit of forgetfulness, they tend to develop Alzheimer's. So because you're eating every food group, no, nothing is restricted here. If you see, every food group is being eaten in a sufficient way, in a certain way, with a certain frequency, so you are not really deprived of anything. And since the moderation is the key, and there is a moderate allowance of every food group, we also know that your uh, cravings and psychological satiety or psychological cravings are taken care of, right? And at the same time, it also takes care of your brain health, so you do not have anything which is like you will not have problems like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's in the later stages, when you have a very balanced way of eating everything. So, other than Mediterranean and the DASH diet that we discussed, there are certain nutrients which are exclusively good, which is proven by research for heart health. Okay, so phytosterols, these are all, they may sound very fancy and they may sound like jargons, but they are nothing but very simple things which are derived from plants. Okay, and more than 250 types of plant sterols have been confirmed. And for all those people who have issues with LDL and HDL, HDL is the good cholesterol, LDL is known to be the bad cholesterol. So if anybody here has an issue with high HDL always, so you can include these phytosterols in your diet. So where do you find phytosterols? Simple, I think the picture says it all. Almonds, soaked peeled almonds every day, 3 to 4 of them. And then you can see on the right hand side variety of legumes and pulses. So whichever region you are based out of, whichever region or whichever state that you belong to, whichever wherever in India, and India is a very diverse country, right? So we have so many things, like every kilometer away we have a different cuisine, we have a different way of cooking. So include all your local pulses, seasonal pulses. Now that winters have started setting in, so at least in the north, it is all this saag that comes into picture. In the south, people start obviously including all your sambar and lot of these health drinks, like they health concoctions rather, which is made up of so many different things. So all your pulses, seasonal pulses, variety of them, whether it's rajma, chole, lobia, different kinds of grams, different kinds of beans, so these are all rich in phytosterols. So anybody who has an issue with LDL, or constantly you feel that you're working out, you're following the diet, but still LDL is not taken care of, so please feel free to include these. So answer is very simple in everything. We don't have to make it very complicated and fancy, because these things are very easily available. You don't have to spend a lot of money, number one. And number two, we have already in it's a part of the Indian cuisine already. It's just that probably we don't know its importance, right? So here I have also mentioned the mechanism. It might be a little too technical, but basically phytosterols reduce LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and the main mechanism is to reduce the amount of cholesterol which is absorbed through the intestinal lumen. So I think this is a little too technical for anybody of you who's interested. You can, like, read it, but basically the amount also is present. So a study which is again that I've put in here, in the West, people have now started realizing the importance of phytosterols. So there they don't really have, rajma, chola, and all of that. So they have capsulated these phytosterols. So 4 grams a day is usually, taken by these people in the West, and a low dose, at least of 2 grams a day, is available in the market. So this is usually there in the Western countries like Sweden, and then you have European countries which have started inculcating these things. In fact, as a matter of fact, even we have curcumin tablets, which is your turmeric tablets, cinnamon tablets, and all available today, which in India we don't really have to break our head about, because every dal, every sabzi has turmeric. But yeah, the foreigners or the Western people now understand the importance of these things, and they are now capsulating it. I think we are still in a better place because we still have access to all of our local badam, local pulses, and it's just that maybe we don't realize the importance, right? So the second important thing, this I think women are very familiar with vitamin E, right? Because anybody who wants to look beautiful, and most of the dermatologists, I'm sure all of us have visited some dermat at one point in time, or maybe we have spoken to somebody, some doctor, right? So off late we see a lot of vitamin E rich creams, lot of external applicants of vitamin E. So vitamin E is also very good for the heart, right? So we don't know, maybe we only look at it from a very beauty perspective kind of a thing, but it also plays a very good role in heart health. So apart from Dash, Mediterranean, and phytosterol, including vitamin E in the diet is very good. Okay. Vitamin E easily found in saffron, so include 2 to 3 strings of saffron in your diet, or very easily found in all your nuts. Okay, so badam, walnut, apricot, fig, whatever local nuts, seasonal nuts that you have. Apart from that, you also have non-vegetarian sources giving you vitamin E. So your fish, and then you have all the, especially tuna, salmon, all of these things. Apart from that is polyphenols. Again, these are again they include flavonoids and resveratrol. So people, really don't know about all these things. The thing is, we have everything in Indian diet, but we don't know what consists of what. That's the problem. So all your polyphenols are found in all dark colored vegetables and dark colored fruits. So I think every season we have a different fruit that comes in, right? Like now in Delhi, I see this, we get a lot of red radish, which is there, or purple radish also. So all these red colored, dark colored vegetables are very good for your heart health. So include them, maybe like in your sabzi, or you can make like a very nice paratha out of it at home. All these are very important. Flavonoid quercetin. So people have this habit of drinking green tea. They get green tea extracts from foreign countries when they go, but onions, apples, berries, and your normal tea leaves, right? Especially tea when it is grown in the north, and probably coffee in the south, all of them have quercetin. So it is very, very easy and very accessible. Like I always say, Indian diet is the most balanced diet, nutritious diet, but it's just that we do not know what comes from what. And resveratrol is again very natural, non flavonoid polyphenol, which is again found in grape extracts and peanuts, which again reduces LDL. So, but that doesn't mean we eat a lot of peanuts. Again, that is something which I would like to say, it has to be in moderation. It has to be in a very controlled quantity. But again, people, when I say peanuts, often think of roasted peanuts or ready made peanuts, which is given, not that. I'm talking about the fresh ones. Isoflavones also, so again, which is found in soybean, okay, they also can reduce the serum levels of LDL and triglycerides. And serum vitamin B, C, D, E are again of great significance in assessing cardiovascular risk and early prevention of CVD. So vitamin B again are found in all your vegetables, all your fruits. So just all that we have to do is just eat them. I think we are so easy. I mean, we find taking a supplement so easy, but then, we don't like to cook and eat it the natural way. Omega 3 polyunsaturated. So, omega 3 again Fish is the best source. Your tuna, salmon, sardine, all of this. And if you're a vegetarian, then please do include a serving of seeds in your diet, which is with, whether it is flax seed, pumpkin seed, sunflower seeds. You don't have to eat it specifically, you don't have to eat it separately, but just mix it in something, mix it, put it on a fruit, powder it. You won't even get to know that you have included that. So these are again a few things which we can include as a part of the heart healthy diet, if you want your heart to be healthy in the longer run. Coming to the CVD, because I'm sure all of you know what is CVD. So, a broad term which consists of a group of disorders which is pertaining to the heart and blood vessels. So, I'm not getting into the details of all these individual diseases, because here we're talking about more of prevention from a nutrition perspective. But CVD comprises of all these, below mentioned, disorders. And whenever things go wrong in either of the ways, and that is when it leads to again some problem with your circulation, and they are again coming in this broad term of CVD, right? So it can be rheumatic heart disease, it can be peripheral arterial disease, it can be coronary heart disease, all of this. But more or less the triggers or the causative factors for CVD remains the same, like we discussed: lack of physical activity, your stress levels, and very importantly, since I'm talking about nutrition, so your nutritional discipline, rather the way your lifestyle is when it comes to eating. Okay. So this is just another slide of atherosclerosis, which I wanted to show, because I just thought of putting this up here, because here I just wanted to make you, guys understand that how a normal artery looks like. I'm sure you guys know, and how, initially, like I said, with nutrition and lifestyle, initially it starts off with simple things like dyslipidemia, or having higher cholesterol levels or higher LDL levels. So, and then which eventually leads to a plaque formation, and then it leads to a condition called atherosclerosis, right? So it is important that we start taking care from day one, right? Like, how many of us even get a regular blood check done at least once in 6 months, once in a year, to understand how good are we standing on our cholesterol or lipid parameters, how good is our A1C, or blood sugar parameters. We always don't have to wait until something is diagnosed, right? We at least can get it done once in 6 months, or biannually rather, like once in a year or once in 6 months, to know what is our health index, right? Hmm. Prevention is always better than cure, but most of us realize it late, only once after something is diagnosed. That's the irony. But here again, let's not be that late. So let us always try and looking after, let us try and keep our health index high. Though here we are talking about heart health in specific, but it's not just about the heart always, right? It's also about other parameters, keeping your blood sugars under check, keeping your blood pressure under check, sleeping well, not resorting to alcohol and other forms of indulgence. So this is what makes it the entire thing. Heart is not just, like I said, nothing is, though they all work independently, but they're all interdependent, right? So now coming to, how do you prevent from a nutrition perspective, which is CVD or anything related to your heart? um, so I think a lot of people keep talking about weight and sleep and all of that, but there are certain recommendations which is given as a dietary, guideline for people, or for Indians specifically, as to how to prevent, CVD. So here, macros are the ones which are forming the major part of our diet. So macronutrients are your carbs, protein, and fat, right? But here I have put up this slide exclusively for us to focus on the details of the macros, right? Everybody talks about keeping fit, lose weight, don't, resort to good quality protein, all of that, yes. But the fat is the one which plays a very important role here, and followed by the consumption of the carbohydrate, right? So here, coming to the total fat. So when we say like here it is designed for a 2000 kilocalorie diet. So when we say somebody is eating a 2000 kilocalorie diet, we have to make sure that, so this again you cannot do it, huh? This can be done by consulting a professional dietitian or a nutritionist depending on your needs. I have just put up this slide so that we know what are the important factors or the nutrients or the important things that contribute to, your CVD prevention. So the main important thing that a dietitian will do depending on your age, height, weight will be making sure your fat control, or the calories coming from fat, total fat is about 15 to 30% of your total energy. And usme bhi it's very important that you see that the saturated fat, trans fat, PUFA, all of these are in a certain ratio. So saturated, I'm sure all of you know what are, how the classification is done. So fatty acids or fats are again, divided into saturated fat, and then you have trans fat, and then you have, monounsaturated, unsaturated fatty acids. So you have omega 3, omega 6 in that. So you have unsaturated fatty acids, which are classified into mono and polyunsaturated fatty acids. So this ratio of saturated to your omega 3 to omega 6 is very important. So generally we take it in the ratio of 1 is to 2 is to 1. Okay. So MUFA to PUFA to your saturated fatty acid ratio is very important to be maintained when somebody is designing a diet chart for you. So, without making it sound very complicated, all I will say is saturated fat is something which has to be lesser than 7 to 10% of the total fat. And for you to understand where we get saturated fat from, saturated fat comes generally from any animal source. Okay. So, all your red meat and your, all these palm oil, all of this has to be less used. Trans fat is the one which is the most deadly one, which causes a lot of trouble, which comes from all the processed foods like pizza, burger, pasta, red meat, vanaspati, dalda, all of this. So this has to be ideally less than 1% of your total calorie intake. And then coming to your polyunsaturated fatty acid, which are of two types, one is omega 3 and one is omega 6, right? So omega 6, or it's also known as linoleic acid, omega 3 is your linolenic acid. So omega 3 is mainly found in your fishes, all your tuna, sardine, salmon, all of that I mentioned in the previous slide, which are anti-inflammatory, and they are very good for your cognitive brain health, and very good form of protein also. So anybody who's trying to lose weight, who's trying to have a very lean muscular outfit, can also have them. And omega 6 is the one which is linoleic acid, which is again present in your nuts and seeds. So that is your badam, and then your flaxseed, pumpkin seed, all of these. So these are all essential fatty acids, by which I mean to say, which is very important for your body, which your body cannot make, but you need it from the diet, right? And then you have MUFA. MUFA is your monounsaturated polyacid. Monounsaturated fatty acid. So MUFA is again found in your normal, whole grains and all of that. So this balance of, MUFA to PUFA to good amount of fat is very important. And the biggest thing that we all see is cholesterol, because that is the only thing that we see in any blood test report. So cholesterol in a day, so cholesterol is indigenously synthesized. So that is something that we need to understand. So cholesterol is also indigenous, by which I mean that even your body makes cholesterol, especially your liver, right? Your liver synthesizes cholesterol. So apart from the body indigenously producing, we also get cholesterol from animal sources, right? Which is your egg yolk, your chicken, fish, all of this. So this consumption has to be regulated. Okay, so that we have to make sure that it is well within 200 mg per day. Okay, and that is why we say that you can have these servings of fish or nuts, 1 to 2 servings per week, right? So this is again very, very individually customized as per your dietary preference, as per your age, height, activity levels, all of these things. But these are the guidelines which is given by the WHO according to a person, a healthy male who can consume a 2000 kilocalorie diet in order to prevent a cardiovascular disease. So now how do we translate that into, you know, whole thing? Because this is too much of math, so much of percentage. So what do you understand by, how do we translate that into plate now? So here you see this plate. So here it's written, choose my plate. So here you see the left hand side is filled with fruits and vegetables. So this is the portion that you understand. You understand the differences in this, the quadrant here. You see dairy is outside the plate in a small quantity. You see the grains which are mentioned, they have written 6 to 8. So what is the portion of the grains that has to be in the plate? What is the portion of the protein that has to be in a plate? So what do we simply understand? We just understand that the grain and the protein has to be in equal proportions. Most of the times what happens in an Indian diet, we take so much of rice and at least 3 4 chapatis, and the dal will be in a very small katori, right? And vegetable is hardly there. So here we see that the lot of importance is given to your vegetable consumption. So here, if you can see the slide very carefully, you see that there are 2.5 to 3 cups of vegetables a day. It means that there is some vegetable in breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then you see fruits also. It is a very small quadrant when compared to the other three. So this is how you choose a plate, or set a plate rather, whenever you're trying to lose weight, or you're keeping your heart health in mind. So again, if you see on the right hand side, what are the protein foods that I'm talking about, what are the dairy foods that I'm talking about, and you see the dairy here, the dairy is outside in a very small quantity, right? So here we are all talking about high biological value protein. It means that protein which is not very processed or synthesized. So I'm not talking about a lot of red meat, I'm talking about good protein. So if you're a vegetarian, then you need a balance of the cereal and protein so that you get the best of both amino acids, which is methionine and lysine. Now if you're a non-vegetarian, you have many options, because you can have eggs, you can have fish, you can have lean chicken. But let's talk about a vegetarian, because that is where the most of them prefer, find the problem to be. Because vegetarian sources of, protein is very less. It's mostly dals, pulses, soy, and all of these. So people who are vegetarian, make sure that you are having very good quality of your protein by inculcating good quality dals, good quality, pulses, like you're inculcating rajma, chole, beans, lobia, all of this. And that ideal mix has to be there. It's not like you're overdoing the protein and underdoing the carbs. That also doesn't work. And whenever I'm talking about carbs here, it is very important that we are talking about complex carbs. I'm not talking about simple or refined carbs. Refined carbs are all your maida and all of these things. Here, complex carbs means I'm talking about whole grains, the ones which come with the husk. Like, if you're talking about the wheat, I'm talking about the full, the whole grain wheat. If I'm talking about rice, I'm talking about unpolished rice. I'm referring to that. If you're somebody who includes millets in your diet, you can use millets. So that is the kind of whole grains that we are talking about. I'm not talking about the simple ones, like, your simple maida wala pasta, not all of that. And even when I'm talking about the vegetable or the fiber consumption, which is very important, I'm talking about a mix. So here, the fiber that we are going to talk about in the next slide, there are two forms of fiber, which is soluble and insoluble. The soluble form of the fiber comes from your pulpy things like your fruits, and then the insoluble form of the fiber, which is coming from your vegetables, is very important. So it's not only about the vegetables. A lot of people only keep having raw salads every day, and then they end up having constipation or bloating at the end of 1 month. Because we need both insoluble and soluble form of fiber. It means that you have to eat a fruit also, maybe everything not at once, but your diet should contain a fruit also. And you also have vegetables in the form of, gourds, cucumbers, carrots, tomatoes, all the forms of local seasonal vegetables, right? So this is a very important slide which tells you how to, set your plate in general, if you're looking at a good heart health, and if you're trying to maintain your optimum body weight. So now let's talk about the simple things as to how we can inculcate in a practical way, because all of this plate setting is done, percentage is done, but now, cutting the whole thing, long story cut short, what can we eat, right? So wait it out. So waist is to hip circumference and not BMI anymore, right? So BMI is not a very ideal indicator for all of us, especially if you're a sports person and all of these things, come into picture. So waist is to hip circumference of 0.8 for women, actually. and one for men indicates that you are free from stubborn belly fat. Okay, so your waist divided by hip. Okay, so always make sure that it, apart from weight, because weight is a very collective parameter, it's not going to indicate anything, it can be, weight is comprising of so many factors like your bone mass, muscle mass, all of this. So WHR is now the recent indicator which we see, and then we analyze if a person has stubborn belly fat or if the person is more vulnerable to develop any cardiovascular disease. So include a teaspoon of homemade ghee for a narrow waist and for satiety. So this might sound very controversial, but ghee is also very good, which we will discuss in the upcoming slides. But when consumed in moderation and when it is homemade, that is why it is in bold. Okay, gods guard you. Like I was talking about the fiber consumption, where we need soluble and insoluble fiber. We need at least 30 to 40 grams of fiber in a day for a good gut health, and for also, for satiety, for weight loss, and for a good heart health, because fiber is also known to decrease your cholesterol levels. So gourds are the best form of fiber. So any gourd, evi gourd, your lauki, karela, tinda, padwal, any gourd, right? Bitter gourd, rich gourd, Evi gourd, any gourd is very good form of fiber. You can make roti out of it. You can, like, you have lauki ka roti also. You have lauki ka kofta, anything. I have just given you one lauki paratha as an example. And your millets also constitute good amount of fiber. Last year, Karnataka was the highest producer of millets, and the theme also was, millet filled Karnataka or something like that. So millets, with depending on the region that you belong to, whether you're from the north, south, east, west, I'm sure you have millets that grow in your region. So make sure that you inculcate them. So here I've again given jawar roti, bajra khichdi as an example, because they also take care of your weight. Okay, so weight is the first thing that we all have to focus on, but weight not only by what is shown on the scale, but the other parameter that I've mentioned here is WHR. So the four S's play a very important role again in heart health. So I'm sure you're going to talk more about your psychological factors in the upcoming sessions, but here I would like to stress more on your strength, stamina, sleep, and stretch. Okay, so all of us, not sure how many of us sleep very well in the bracket window of 10:30 p.m. to 5:30 a.m., because if you are sleeping very late, the hormonal recovery, or the cortisol recovery doesn't happen. Not sure how many of us are into strength training, because many a times we have this myth that only if the boys should do strength training, and if a woman does strength training she will look muscular and all of that. So strength training is important for every individual to make sure that you have good muscle mass or good muscle tone in your body. And because otherwise, with age, as you cross 30, every year we tend to lose some amount of muscle, right? And then there is fat accumulation which keeps happening, which is nothing but, adiposity keeps increasing, which can make you very vulnerable for developing any heart issues or CVD in the longer run. And stamina and stretching, so you need to again work, not just you, all of us need to work on our these four S's. We don't have to be very exclusively doing the same for 8 hours a day or 5 hours a day, probably like an actor or an actress, but we need to make sure that these are again a part of our lifestyle, right? You don't have to spend 2 hours in a gym doing all this, but we need to make sure that we are equally investing on these, parameters of good sleep and stretching, and build working on our stamina. There is no one good exercise. It can be anything. If you're somebody who likes to swim, you can do swimming. If you're somebody who enjoys gymming, you can do gymming. But it's just that we need to be more consistent with that. So nutritional discipline, so this is the biggest thing that all of us fail to do. So hunger is the first element of self discipline, right? So if you can control on what you're eating and drinking, I think everything else in life can be controlled. So how many of you, this is just like a question to yourself, how many of you are very compliant with your exercise? How many of you are very, constantly tired? Do you really need a reminder to drink water or an alarm to wake you up? Do you need an app to really customize your meals? Do you binge eat? Do you stress eat? So, if you are saying a yes for all of this, then it means that yes, today your nutritional discipline is very poor. your body's biological clock is also very poor. Because if you're somebody whose biological clock is very active, if your biological clock is good, then you really don't need an alarm to wake you. You will get up on time, you will eat on time, you know your body responds to it very naturally. Because I have seen people who have reminders to drink water off late. So it means that your body is somewhere not responding, your biological clock is not very well set. That is why you don't feel thirst, you don't feel hunger, suddenly you feel hungry, suddenly you feel sleepy. So all of these are the signs or symptoms of, telling us that, boss, your health index is not very great. Because eventually these problems will then resort to bigger problems in the future. So if you're somebody who is constantly tired, who constantly is very, not filled with energy, it is a sign to tell you that, you are doing something wrong. So nutritional discipline is very important, and these are simple questions to ask yourself, uh, and to understand how active you are, and how I can say, maybe um, agile you are. uh, so yeah, salt consumption is also one of the very important things which come into picture. Like, I have mentioned about this in the starting when I started my talk. So salt is not just about the salt that comes from the diet. Like I always say, you start your day with two biscuits, and if or you're eating a packet of biscuits whenever you're hungry or stressed, that is also, way where salt comes from. So reducing salt intake has been to, very cost effective measures taken by any country, and it has also given great health outcomes. Because more the sodium, more there is water retention, and then there is the sodium potassium balance which gets, disrupted. So sodium is found in, like I said, not just your salt, it is also found in milk, your green leafy vegetables, shellfishes, and lot of your processed foods. So that is why your breads and your processed meat and snacks and chips and all of this, though they are very economical, you might get a Lays packet at 10 rupees, but you know that if you look at the label, then you will know how much of salt intake is already done, or you have already crossed your salt intake of the day. Because according to the WHO, recommended salt intake for an Indian is just 4 to 5 grams in a day. Okay, and that too, if you're somebody who's already trying to work on your heart health, then it has to not be more than 2 to 3 grams a day. So but sometimes we are so hungry, we don't pay attention to all of this, we have not planned our meals well, we end up eating one Lays packet or probably one biscuit packet full, and we have already exhausted our salt intake for the day. And anything over and above that is always a surplus, right? So this is very, very important that we keep an intake, or we keep an eye on our salt intake. The salt in a normal case, like I said, dietary guidelines for Americans says even more lesser. It's about 2,300 milligram, but it's about 1 teaspoon for an Indian here. It's about 4 to 5 grams. And in any diet, even after any heart problems, your salt intake plays a very major role. I'm not going to the after heart, ailment wala phase here, but very important for us to measure means I don't expect anybody to measure the salt that we take through our food, but at least the external packets and the processed foods that we are, consuming. For example, if you're somebody who's having full fat milk in the house, make sure that you're switching to toned milk, or double toned milk in the house, right? So that you're cutting down on a little bit of sodium. So very important. This is, I think, you can capture this slide, or you can just make a note of it, because whenever we are always bought by advertisements and marketing, whenever they say salt free, so low sodium, heart healthy, all of these, right? You have so many, I don't want to name the brands, but you have so many things that come and say free of this, free of that. But what exactly does it mean is here. So when something is said salt free, it does not mean it is salt free. It still has sodium, but it is less than 5 mg of sodium per serving. When they say very low sodium, then this is the number that they're talking about. When they say low sodium, then it is 140 mg of sodium. When they say reduced sodium, when they say light in sodium. So we need to be very, very ultra cautious and clear when we are buying something from the market. Nutrition labeling is a different topic in itself, because each time they say something or anything is mentioned on the packet, it does not mean the same. So please do not go by the face value or whatever you see. Please do read the label, and please make sure that you are, if you're somebody who's already having a certain ailment, or if you're already falling to that category of being vulnerable to the CBD, you have to make sure that you don't buy something which is just by its face value. Are fats really fattening? So most of the times we blame the fat, right? Oh, heart problem, so you're eating a lot of fat. So again, like I told you in the last slide, or maybe a couple of slides ago, we were thinking, we were discussing, we brought this ghee topic up. So should we not have homemade ghee at all? So these are the common little, frequently asked questions that I get to, hear, or that I'm asked. So, according to a research, again, I just quoted it down. So, ghee, yes, is made up of saturated and unsaturated, fatty acid. So you have oleic acid, which is MUFA, but here ghee also contains more amount of PUFA, which is your omega 3, omega 6, in the ratio of 6.7, which is way higher than butter. And it also has butyric acid. So that is why America of late suggests everybody to have 1 teaspoon of ghee. But I think this was already there in the Indian system. But the only thing is, we should not overdo this, right? Just because you can have ghee doesn't mean you have ghee every day with everything. So anything in moderation. So you have 1 teaspoon of ghee a day in any one of the meal is still acceptable, right? But it's not only about the ghee. It also, there comes the actual picture of method of cooking. So here it depends on what kind of oil you're using, especially the cooking oil. So here it is very important that we all resort to cold pressed or unrefined oils. So in that, whether you use mustard, groundnut, or coconut doesn't matter, but we make sure that we are using unrefined oils, and the quantity is very, very important. So for anybody, according to the Indian Association, we are supposed to use half a liter of oil for one person in 1 month. So depending on how many people stay with you, this can be customized. Should we throw away cashews from our diet? No, not necessarily. Cashew nuts are also good for skin, good for gut, but again, only when consumed in moderation. So that doesn't mean that we all start eating roasted cashews every day. We can have 2 cashews in a day, and that's not a problem, provided we are physically active and not sleeping after eating the cashew nut. Is it bad to have coconut with the meat inside? Not at all. But again, coconut is extremely good for your nervous system, good amount of good quality edible fat which comes in. But it also depends on the exercise or the activity levels that a person is having. Someone told me that desi oil is bad. Should we switch to olive oil? Not necessarily. Like I said, any unrefined oil or any cold pressed oil would do when it is consumed as per the quantity that I mentioned. So always choosing fat free foods because you don't want to put on weight. No, we do need good or edible, good healthy fats in the form of our omega 3, omega 6, all DHA, EPA, and all of that, because they constitute our nervous system. They take care of our brain health. They also take care of our skin, hair quality. So we do need good fats in the form of nuts, seeds, fish, everything. My neighbor doesn't eat egg yolk of the egg because it is fattening. No, it is also very important that you consume the yolk. It is not fattening until and unless you overdo it, until and unless you're doing it without any scientific rational approach. Otherwise, egg yolk is not going to harm you. In fact, it helps in your biotin, absorption. It is a very good source of your vitamin D synthesis and very good source of full protein. So these are the common myths around fat that we have. So, what to look for in a fat intake? So, always do not rule out fats completely in the name of weight loss. Switch to healthier fats, like I mentioned, virgin cooking oil, nuts, seeds. Spices are again very, very important. So, make sure that you include your garlic, your turmeric, cinnamon, clove, all of this in the cooking. And what we need to have a strict vigilance on is your processed red meat, junk, canned foods, and all of this. And very importantly, I think I've been talking about it from the past 5 minutes, is reading labels. Look for protein and fiber combination in meals. It means that have a balanced plate. Don't overdo anything and don't underdo anything. And fat recommended is very important, which I've also put it in the preventary slide, which is less than 15% of total energy. So again, fat does not come when you eat a normal balanced meal at home. Excess fat comes when you drink diet coke, or probably when we start eating pastries, when we resort to emotional eating, junk eating, binge eating, all of these. So, foods which are good for the heart. So, all vegetarians, badam, like the phytosterol which we spoke about. So, eat 2 to 3 soaked peeled almonds. Any dark colored, fruits which are there in the season, whether it's lychee, cherry, peaches, whatever it is in the season. Kokum is, again, I'm sure people in the Western Ghats would know about it. And if you're not somebody who is familiar with it, you can also have a Nimbu Sharbat or Roo Afza, which is more common in the north, which is again very good source of manganese, because in a heart health, we also look at manganese, chromium, and zinc. Okay. And homestead buttermilk, which is again good source of B12 for vegetarians, and your calcium deficiency too, and it's also a phytosterol. So everything is already there in the diet. We just have to know what is what. A few more things like steamed fatty fish. I think we have spoken about. Then fermented foods, which we idli, dosa batter when made at home. Olive or sabja seeds, which are again, this is again for the vegetarians who don't eat, non-veg form of protein. And look for vitamin D fortified products in case you're in a hostel, or you're in a setup where you don't have access to cooking food on your own, right? In a nutshell, so what are the simple things that we can focus on is eat local, seasonal, and fresh. That is very, very important. Eating is very important because a lot of people don't eat at all in the name of guilt. Adequate sleep, exercise, health is always there, and then that is how you can achieve your weight loss, because most of us struggle with that. And the don'ts in this whole thing are any diet which comes with a fancy name, binge eating, stress eating, meal replacers, anything which comes with hashtags, and anybody who asks you to only keep eating salad, smoothie, starvation, please don't fall prey to it. Customization is the key in this entire thing. I only want to stress on one thing, that these are all the generic discussion that we had, but it's very, very important that we always customize our needs. It cannot be something which is generic. It's not one size that fits all, right? So we have to talk to a professional, we have to get it right and not resort to our own ways of doing things. So this is just a sample thing that I have shown here, how a customized diet can look like without adding the portion sizes. So this is for a general person, or how customization can be had. So talking about the entire thing, that including whatever nuances that we discussed. So starting your day with some fruit and nuts, having your good breakfast which has all forms of protein, fiber, fat, carbs, and then having like a small mid morning drink, then inculcating your local seasonal variety of cereal with a vegetable, and then having your evening snack instead of having a biscuit, and then winding up with a small dinner. So also include the things that are mentioned in bold, because most of the times people are thinking that it is not good for health. So thank you very much for a very patient hearing, and I think I am open to take questions.
Thank you very much, Saranya. Thank you very much for this wonderful delivery of the content, and it was really amazing. I was completely here and listening, to the each and every word, and how you have described 1.5 hour, almost 90 minutes. It was amazing. So first, we will take some questions for 10 minutes from the audience. Guys, if you have any questions, please, suit up right now, and then we can discuss further on the course, or if you want any other information. Okay, so there are some questions, Mr. Anya.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does what I lost that. Does something what?
I'm just getting all the questions here. Okay, guys, write your questions again if there is anything. How to balance the fat and protein deficiency in the vegetarian diet schedule?
Yeah. So this is fat you can anyway balance because you are consuming nuts, you're consuming seeds. When you consume it regularly, like every day, you start your day with some, soaked nuts like walnut and badam in a regular handful quantity, and then you're anyway using the cooking oil. So fat is balanced, but the way protein is to be balanced is very important. That is where you need a lot of planning, because you can't have a lot of protein in one meal. It's not possible to eat 2 katoris of dal because anybody will feel bloated and constipated. So that is where your creativity of cooking comes into picture. So if you're, suppose, assuming that you're a South Indian, so where if you're making an idli or a dosa, that is where how you can add dal to your protein, like by making a dal dosa, by making a dal idli. And otherwise you can also make something like a dal poha with sprouts, right? So there your creativity comes into picture. So then you can have your normal roti dal sabzi for dinner and lunch. And even when you're having a snack, you can make like a soup which is made out of horse gram dal. So this is how vegetarians have to balance protein by little bit, by being a little creative with their cooking. Because generally vegetarian diets are mostly carb dominated, because if it's idli, dosa or anything else, it's mostly rice and rice flakes. So we need to inculcate small amounts of protein by adding it in every meal.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So there are many more questions. There was a question related to coffee. I just missed that question. I'm not sure where is that question. Let me find out.
Okay.
1 cup of black coffee, if it is okay per day or not.
Yes, it is. So caffeine, when consumed under moderation, so generally we say it's within 150 to 250 milligrams a day, is definitely okay. But if it's only black coffee in a day, it's okay. But if you're also consuming chocolate or any other forms of caffeine, then it is a cause of concern. So 1 cup of, again, cup is a very subjective thing. If you can be very specific about the quantity, like if it's 150 ml, 100 ml, then it is definitely okay. So because cup can also be very subjective. Some people drink mugs of coffee. So then it is definitely not suggested.
Okay, so guys, I'm not taking the questions related to the diabetes diet plan today. That we can conduct again another class for that. Okay, I'll take some common questions. Does cooking fiber nullify its effect? Yes,
No.
I can definitely, guys. One sec. I'm so sorry. I will unmute you all so you can speak one by one. Yes, 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 yes. True. Okay, so after this question, anyone, if they wants to speak, they can speak. Yes, go ahead, please, Saranya.
Yeah, so cooking fiber, as in, are you asking about like heat on application of cooking? That's what I'm assuming.
I believe that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, heat has nothing to do with fiber, but again, it's very important to make sure that we are not cooking vegetables specifically at a very high temperature, because vitamin B, set of group of vitamins, are definitely denatured at a very high temperature. So fiber will not really, be affected because it's a very different structure, but the vitamins and minerals will definitely get affected when you boil it at a very high temperature for more than half an hour or 20-25 minutes.
Yes. Okay. Some more interesting questions. Ma'am, may I know what is the substitute for citrus allergic patients who are
So,
also diabetic? I mean, in diabetic patients, he's asking for the replacement of citrus.
so citrus fruits, who can't have citrus fruits.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, true.
Okay, but they can have other fruits like your apples, your papayas, all of the other fruits are okay. Citrus fruits, if you're not able to have, you can have other fruits, or you can also have other vegetables like, even gourd vegetables are good for you since you are considered to be diabetic.
Dr. Pooja has a question. My question is almost all Indian families believe that milk is the key to nutrition. How can
Hmm.
this make us more unhealthy? I don't think milk make us unhealthy, but I'll wait for the answer from the expert.
Yeah. Yeah, so milk, actually, see, it's a very controversial topic that can, go on for debate. But of late, the problem what we see with milk is it is adulterated with hormones, because the cows are adulterated with hormones. If you are somebody who gets milk from a cow, which is right outside your house, then trust me that milk is very fresh and good, because you know what you're feeding. Yes.
Somebody
Yeah.
speak? Anyone wants to speak? No, I don't.
So, yeah, so what I was saying is, if you know that the source is very authentic, like I think previous zamane mein we had the cows at home. So even now, I think I'm sure in certain cities, people get milk from cows, which is very fresh in the morning.
Yeah.
So then it is, you know, the source, you know what you're feeding the cows, you know that it is a very good source and that has definitely a better nutritional, you know, index than what milk we get in a city like Delhi, Bangalore, which comes in packets. So anything which comes in packets, you and I do not know the authenticity of, you know, where it is coming from. So of late, the biggest problem that we see is most of these animals, even the vegetarian part of it is affected, but animals are more adulterated with hormones, and that is why, you know, to increase their production, to increase the productivity, and you know all of that. So that is why there are things where we say that milk, when consumed in excess, is not recommended. But that doesn't mean you should stop milk totally from your diet. But you can have toned milk or remove the fat of the milk and then use it.
Okay, there are many questions we can actually avoid because those questions are very good, but I believe if we are answering the questions not relevant to today's class, it will take a lot of time. There are questions on lactose intolerance, there are questions on hyperuricemia, there are questions on how to reduce the belly fat. Okay, there is one question. Is Pesarattu good for health? If I'm not
Oh,
pronouncing well, please
yes.
guide. Yeah.
Yes, pesarattu, yes. It's moong dal dosa. So, yeah, it is. It is.
Okay. If a person is anemic, so what will be the diet plan for the person? Oh, it's a big question, I believe. Does a
Yeah.
constipation patient will have a different diet? Yes and no.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, it is. It is. It is different. So, if you're having constipation, yes, it'll be slightly different. Your recommendation on fiber is different.
When would you suggest to have the milk? In the morning or before sleep?
It totally depends on what kind of a lifestyle you're carrying. So if you're somebody who, it also depends on your metabolism. Okay, it depends on a lot of factors, because there are people who can't digest milk very well in the night, and there are people who cannot digest milk very well in the morning. So if it's a kid, we don't suggest milk in the morning, because then the kid will not end up having breakfast, because the kid will feel very full with having a milk glass of milk in the morning. So it totally depends on your activity levels, your appetite, and basically your metabolic rate.
Yeah. There is a question I didn't understand. If you can speak, 1 plus CPH is the name. How to escape the salt from veggies and how to handle veggies while rinsing and cooking.
Okay, I think I got the question. So he's asking how to decrease the salt in the vegetables which come
Yes.
from the vegetables. So there is this process which we do called leaching, which generally is advised to people who have already have many heart conditions or ailments, right? So we ask them to boil these green leafy vegetables specifically for 10 to 15 minutes and then discard the water, because that decreases the sodium content, and then the green leafy vegetables can be used to make a sabzi or a dal or whatever.
Okay. There is a wonderful question from Tane. What should a person eat if I have a busy or unpredicted schedule?
You can eat anything which is normal, natural, seasonal, traditional food that you have grown up eating. It's just that make sure that you are balancing your meals with normal food and you don't have to try out on a very sophisticated diet. Because at the end of the day, time constraint is something that all of us have.
Okay, no worry, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so one or two more questions we'll take because there are 20 more questions. Okay, there's a very interesting question from Abhishek. Does consuming whey protein cause damage to health, to the heart health?
No, not really. So again, whey is a very different topic. So it has to be consumed based on your workout schedule, depending on how much you're working out. Do you really have a need, first of all? Because there are a lot of young boys who just consume whey. They want to look very muscular, bulky. They want to do six-pack bodybuilding. So in general, whey, if it is consumed in control, right, depending on your need, does not have any impact on your heart health. But if you overdo it, and depending on, you know, the quality of whey, because not every whey is doctor verified, medically tested. There are very some cheap qualities of whey also. So if you're just consuming it without any physical activity levels, and if you're not if you have not customized it as per your needs, yes, then it can be a problem. But otherwise, it has not been any problem.
Yes, okay. There are many more questions, but I'll not take all. I think there are the questions on bloating, there are the questions on hypertension, I'll not take. There was a question again and again. Neeta is asking, ma'am, may I know the substitute for lactose intolerant individuals? If you can just answer this.
Yeah, lactose intolerance individuals can also have lactose intolerance. You have lactose free curd, lactose free milk, you have almond milk, you have rice milk, oat milk, all of this which are lactose free. So you can always include those kind of products which are again very plant based and cholesterol free also in the diet.
Yes. How to keep ourselves full without overeating? Okay. There are the questions which are really interesting, so I'm asking. Okay.
Yeah.
Vedika is asking
How to keep yourself full is
without eating.
with mindful eating. So most of the times we look at the screen, we are always in a hurry to eat. We want to finish and go somewhere. So when you're mindfully sitting in a very calm environment and when you enjoy what you eat, that is when you will not overeat. Most of the times we don't really enjoy what we eat. We are always in a stress kind of an environment.
Absolutely. Okay, I think most of the questions I have asked. Okay, Xiaomi is telling, Madam, I recently got heart attack 4 months back. It may follow this diet. Which diet? We didn't get
No,
you.
this is only was spoken in terms of a preventive health. So
Preventive.
we have not spoken about the recommendations post heart attack.
Heart attack. Yes, we were talking about the prevention. Yes. Why saturated and trans fats are considered bad for the heart health? Mechanism I will tell you in the class. Don't worry, okay? You come to my class when I'm taking the hyperlipidemia and prevention of hyperlipidemia. You come to my class, I'll tell you the mechanisms. Okay, I'll
Great.
take you through the cardiac vessels. Okay, how to reduce inflammation in our body. That's guys, I'm so sorry I cannot take all the questions. There are a lot of questions. I'm just searching for one more very important question. Like, uh, okay. Okay. How do portion size? That's okay. How do variations in plant-based diet quality affect cardiovascular outcomes? Is craving food although
सर
not
और कितने टाइम क्लास चलेगी?
sorry? I think nobody is speaking, so let me mute everyone. That's fine. Okay, so how to increase appetite naturally in underweight people, that we'll see. I think that's will take a lot of time. Guys, if you have any questions to cardiovascular health and prevention, please ask. One more question, that's all. What is the ideal doses and source of omega-3 fatty acids for preventing cardiovascular disease in different demographic groups? Last question I'm taking. Yeah. Sarana, you are on mute, I believe. No?
Yeah. So in different demographic groups, it's a very different recommendation from Asians to Europeans to Americans. But in Indians, we can say in terms of food, you can, if you're a non-vegetarian, you can have servings of fish at least 2 to 3 times a week. If you're a vegetarian, then a daily serving of about 5 grams of seeds, roasted seeds, whatever seeds it is, pumpkin, flaxseed, all of this. And if you're talking about a capsule, then it is 2 grams per day. But I think in India it's again they come in terms of supplements, so it again you need to get it customized from a dietitian or a nutritionist depending on your existing health conditions and requirements.
Yes, guys. So thank you very much. Now I'll take just two basic questions. People are asking the day and timing. So this course is 4 months. Every Sunday, 1 p.m. there will be the class, and class has just started today. Last week we did the orientation program for the course, and if you want to join, please join today because this is the last thing, last opportunity. Because last date of the course, is already over on 30th October, right? So you had no chances. But today, as we are conducting this special session, if you want to register, you can register for this class. How many hours the class would be? 1 to 1.5 hour maximum. Every Sunday, 1 to 1.5 hours. So 1 to 2 or 2:30 maximum, the class will be every Sunday. Okay. So if you would like to register, please register today only. Okay. Now only. No need to take the register. No need to take the screenshot. You don't have to take the screenshot, guys. It's already with us. Okay. We already got your registration. You will get the email from my team. My team will send you the email to join a WhatsApp group. How I have registered. Okay, if you want to register, I have shared the link again. Thank you very much again, guys. And please wait for 2 days for your webinar certificates. Okay, and I would like to thank Saranya again. Ms. Saranya, thank you very much for this wonderful. I think after a long time we have started this series, and I believe now we will be calling Saranya frequently for many more classes for you and on the diet chart, because last year we have conducted almost 15 to 20 classes altogether, and it was very successful series on diet and nutrition. We will start it again. So we'll see you. Thank you very much, Saranya ji, and thank you everyone for
Thank
joining.
you.
I could see
Thank you.
there were 350 participants throughout the session. So thank you everyone. Thank you very much, guys. See you. See you. Take care. Have a good Sunday. Bye bye.